but we've done a poor job educating that there's a place and a time to add margin. There's a time and a place to add markup. And there is a time and a place to where you need to know how much cost you have in each of your price per user or price per endpoint to support those that I then need to add margin on top of and then markup. All of that bundled will create that healthy gross margin that will get us to that 8 logos a year.
Hey guys, I'm your host of MSP Mindset, Damian Stevens, and I got the amazing opportunity to speak with Kyle Christiansen today of Empath. You're not going to want to miss this. We cover everything you need to know to sell, to understand your pricing and your profit margins, to understand operations and the future of our industry and what's coming down. Spoiler, it's not AI. So you're not going to want to miss this conversation. He is the co-founder and chief accountability officer of Empath. So I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about that, but we're going to dig right in and get into some of the heart of this. So many MSPs are coming to me, Kyle, and I'm sure to you, and saying, how the heck do I generate revenue and generate leads? What does that look like? And maybe they're good at closing with relationship skills or decent, but generate leads, how do I price this stuff? I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I feel like we're also entering an age or an era where buying the same managed services tools and then delivering the same managed service does no longer differentiate you from the 200 others in your market.
What are you talking about? My website says that I'm the best at customer service and we are the nerds of all nerds and I can fix all of their technical mumbo jumbo with my cool widgets that I bought from the same store that my competitor bought them.
That's right. We're all using the same RMM. Yeah. And like you hit the other point, right? You can't differentiate it as an MSP on service. No, your competitor doesn't say ours is mediocre, right? So let's start with that because I feel like that's where a lot of people have failed out of the gate. What questions do I need to be asking myself to differentiate my MSP?
So before you even go into the growth conversation, what you really have to figure out is, what do I want from my business? And 9 times out of 10, I find people that say, I want to grow. What they really mean is, I want to grow enough to just sustain what we currently have. And that's typically 10 to 13% year over year. Now, while that may sound high to a lot of people, what you have to consider is inflation with cost of living increases are about 6 to 8% year over year, meaning my costs are going to go up 6 to 8%. So I need to be able to increase my revenue 6 to 8% just to maintain the margins I'm making today. And then you're going to add 2 to 3% churn, which means I'm going to have 2 to 3% of my revenue from either customers leaving, customers getting acquired, customers having to downsize for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. So you're looking at that 11-ish%. Then you got to consider, hey, I might want to grow my business a little bit more to either add on some extra fee, like we're talking about sales and marketing, right? We may want to be able to add on some extra costs for buying some of my time back as an entrepreneur, which means I might not need to add a bookkeeping service. I may want to add a dialing service. I may want to bring on an admin. I want to maybe bring on a manager, right? So I can delegate to somebody. So when you start to have all these costs come up, 13 to 15% just keeps you where you are ultimately. Mm-hmm. So I say all of this to say, before I want to grow, whether that's fast growth, which is 20 to 22%, or hyper growth, which is pushing that 30% on boundaries. Mm-hmm. And for those that don't know me, I actually went from 4 to 15 million within about 18 months. And we did that through really knowing we're going to do everything we can to get to this goal. Mm-hmm. However, we know we're not going to go in day 1 to day 2. It's going to be day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6, day 7, day 8, right? And you multiply that, and it's a slow growth of incremental improvements time over time.
It's a little bit like compound interest, right?
It's exactly like compound interest. But if you don't know where this is, then you are just a boat without a destination, and you're just letting the trade winds take you where the trade winds want to take you. I got to learn how to use the winds behind me to my advantage to get me to my destination. Kyle, that sounds really nerdy. What the hell are you trying to say?
Yeah.
So as a operations guy at my core, I need to know how many customers that's going to take me to get to my pinnacle, my goal, my achieving plateau in the next, let's call it 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. Mm-hmm. Say that's 15 logos, 20 logos, 25 logos. And I also need to know, and that's simple math, right? I know if they're charging $2,000 a month in recurring revenue, that's $24,000 a year. You times that by X number of customers, and that gets me to my revenue goal. Mm-hmm. Now, yeah, I know I can increase people and I can sell them extra widgets and do all this other stuff, but I need to think proactively, leading indicators. It's a lot easier to bring in net new business because that makes my business maturity a little bit more stable, because now I have a lot of customers paying me revenue than rather than a little amount of customers paying me a lot of revenue, which is terrifying. You've probably seen this, Damien, right? Where you sit there going, oh, I have a client that pays me 40% of my revenue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is not a good place to be. That's right.
No. And if I can account manage them, like what I did when I was at Geek Squad Corporate, where we can add on revenue, that's great. That goes right to the bottom line. That makes your business grow a little bit healthier. So if I know I need to get to 15 customers, then I need to figure out through revenue operations, or RevOps, a lot of people call it, mm-hmm. how many proposals do I need to deliver to get that many customers? How many discoveries do I need to do to write proposals? How many meetings do I need to have to get to be able to get permission to do discoveries, mm-hmm. right? Like, customers have to know, like, and trust you. There's a triangle of why they buy from you. Mm-hmm. So I got to build up that know, like, and trust. And then how many people do I need to just meet? How many people do I need to engage with? How many people do I need to shake hands with in order to have a meeting? Mm-hmm. Right? We call that first contact or first touch or outbound activity in the sales world.
Yeah.
And it becomes math. And Damien, this is any business, right? We call it a sales funnel. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure even at Servasi, right? You guys have a sales funnel that goes, hey, here's how many people we start with, and we can kind of expect to get to this many people.
Exactly. Have you ever wondered if you could recover your backups? Let me ask a better question. Have you ever had a backup fail to recover? Have you ever lost data? Yeah, that's me. Here's what's crazy. 58% of recoveries fail to recover. So if you think it's just you, you couldn't be more wrong. What are we going to do about that? Well, you've got two options. Enter Servacity. What we do and what we exist to do is test your backups and manage them for you. We test every volume, every single day. We do weekly testing, monthly testing, and quarterly testing. And you can hand off the drudgery and babysitting of backups and the day-to-day management to our team that monitors your backups for you. It's time to level up your backup game. One way you can do that is visit servasi.com/learn more if you'd like to take the process that I've spent the last 18 years building and steal it and apply it to your MSP so that you can level up your backup game. Check out the link below in the description or visit servasi.com/learn more. Yeah, and the point though is, like as you're about to say, right, as I get too many people that are like, but I'm different. It's about referrals, relationships. And if you're saying that, if you're listening and you're saying that, that's what everybody's saying, right? And I'm not saying growth by referral isn't amazing. It's one of the best ways I grow. But if you're sitting there waiting on referrals and you're only getting referral growth and you're not out there growing the business in some proactive way, you're just like everybody else. And just like selling the same RMM is not going to differentiate you, waiting on referrals, sitting back as especially if you're that owner that's the salesperson and you're just sitting back waiting on these referrals to come in. Yeah, they're easy ones. Who couldn't close those? But yeah, that's not enough. That's not, like you were saying, you might not even outpace churn. You're going to celebrate that you got a new logo. And by the way, if you're listening and you're getting 2 or 3 logos a year, this is you, right? This is the 2 or 3 celebrations a year. And you might not, if you're doing the math, be outpacing the churn.
Well, and that's the whole thing is so real quick, let me address referrals before I get into this other thought. Referrals are a fantastic way to grow your business because in that whole triangle of know, like, and trust, they're already going to now know you and they're already going to trust you. Now I just got to get them to like me, right? Because they were referred by someone that they respect. But let me counteract that because I also hear a lot of MSPs tell me, Kyle, I don't have churn. My customers love me. They've been with me for 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah.
How many referrals have they given you?
Yeah.
One. They've given you one referral in 7 years. So
Right.
if you can systematize referrals, we still have a funnel, right? I still have to say, I need to have 50 referrals to get 25 meetings, to deliver 17 discoveries, to then deliver 12 proposals. That gets me my 5, 6, 7 logos.
Mm-hmm.
So regardless of if I'm going for cold leads, meaning I'm just brute forcing it, I'm pulling on doors and saying, hey, who are you? My name's Kyle, come buy my shit.
Mm-hmm.
I also need to know, hey, I'm Kyle. I'm friends with Steve. And Steve said you're cool people. Let's meet.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a system.
Mm-hmm.
And where I think a lot of defeat happens is most MSPs are founded by accidental entrepreneurs. It's the IT guy that was in love with technology and he was a consultant. And as a consultant, you go, shit, I can't sell any more hours, so I'm going to hire an assistant. Boom, you've just converted into a service business.
Mm-hmm.
You've spent the last 5, 7, 10 years maturing your operations and service, and you have spent 0 years maturing your operations and revenue and sales. And if I was to show you, I did a video with Alex Farling where we actually overlaid a help desk ticket flow and a sales workflow. And if you look at them, they're almost exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
You just have opportunities that need to be triaged and escalated versus tickets that need to be triaged and escalated.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a process.
Mm-hmm.
So as a technical person, I loved it because it allowed me to reverse engineer, hey, we're able to write a lot of proposals, but not a lot of them get signed. Why? Well, let's just iteratively improve that one step in our process, which then goes, okay, now we're wasting less time. And all of this is time at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Each steps that I just outlined, it may take you 2 hours to deliver a proposal. It may take you a half hour to follow up on that proposal. And if I have to do 100 proposals to hit my target, well, right there, that's 200 or 300 hours I have to spend just to get those logos closed in just those 2 steps of the funnel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're an owner right now on this call and you're like, I spend 5% of my week doing business development, that's not even enough hours in 5% to write that 300 hours worth of proposals and follow-ups.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them skip the follow-up stage. I would say 90% of them skip the follow-up stage. They send the proposal and then they disappear on the customer or on the prospect. So anywho, that's a long way of saying referrals are fantastic if you can build a process.
Yeah.
So what I did at my MSP, and people may love this, take this away and run with it. When you do a QBR, technology business review, whether you do it quarterly, semi-annually, annually, however you meet with your customers, if you know that they're a customer with a high NPS or high CSAT and they love you and they're good margins, good profitability, have a page or a slide deck prepared. And what I want you to do on that slide deck, go on LinkedIn, click on their name, find all the people that they are connected with, the ones that are 2nd and 3rd degree connections, filter it for CEOs and business owners, filter it for your area, and just grab 5, 6, 7 people. Grab their actual photos of their face. Put it on a slide and say, hey, Mr. Customer, you just said that you love me and you would refer me. Rather than ask you, who do you know or would you refer me? I'm going to ask, there's a lot of names that you know. There's a lot of connections that you have. I'm not going to ask you to work for me, Mr. Customer. I'm just going to say, I've done the work for you. Do any of these 5 to 7 names, would you refer them to me?
I love
and they're going to go, that guy, I don't know. That was a LinkedIn bot. I just hit yes, and it's been bugging the shit out of me for weeks.
Yeah.
That name, that guy's an asshole. I would never refer you to him because you just don't want to work with him.
Right.
And then Sally, Jake, and Kevin, great people. I'll refer you right now.
I love that.
And it's a psychological process. Your brain has too much in long-term memory. And when you ask the question, who do you know? Your brain has to go into overtime to think of all the freaking people that I've met and that I've friendly with in my career.
Yeah. And if you're lucky, it's one, right? If you're lucky, it's one. You do the homework, you give them, you've made their job easier, which will differentiate, I think. And the odds of getting more than one are going to increase. And as you said, systematize, turn this into a process that you can repeat.
And it takes 3-4 more minutes. And if they really go and say, I'm not going to refer you to anybody, then you get to lean and say, so do you really like me? Give me real feedback. Let's have radical conversation. Why would you not refer me to your buddy?
That's right.
Now, I will say, you got to be careful with that. I've definitely had the extroverted entrepreneur go, hell yeah. And they sit there, they grab their phone and they, hey, Steve, meet Kyle. There you go. And then I've had the introverted ones that are like, ooh. So I actually built a template that they could actually just forward to their customers to refer me.
Nice.
But anyhow.
Yeah, we don't have to put them on the spot quite as much, right?
Well, exactly. The whole idea is referral programs don't work. I'm just going to say it. Because what you're essentially asking your customers to be is your sales rep. You're saying, hey, Mr. Customer, I'm too lazy in sales, and can you just work for me? Can you be my account executive? Can you find customers for me? I'll give you $500.
Right.
I'll give you $1,000. They're too busy. There's no empathy in that. There's no conscientiousness in saying, can you stop what you're doing and help me with my business's problems?
Right. I love the part you brought up is empathy, because I get so many people that their system is, I'll give you $500 or $1,000. But I've yet to meet a business owner of any success that moves them. That's not what it's about. Like, if you do a great job, I'll refer you either way. And I think I'd probably be more insulted by the offer than anything. And if you can make an empathetic offer of why I need your help, why this is the right time, why this will really, impact what we're doing or our mission. Okay, now I'm interested. But, like you said, here's some money. I'm too lazy to prospect, do sales. It's not going to work. No. It might be insulting on the other end, right?
No, completely. And let's put it really. If I'm an entrepreneur and I have a friend that's an entrepreneur, I want nothing more than to help him succeed. And maybe I'm rare in that, but I can tell you right now, shameless plug. Anytime someone says, hey, Kyle, I need help managing my backups, I'm like, hey, call Damien. And I don't say that in the aspect of trying to do a pitch, but I'm saying that because us business owners are our own community, and we all know how hard it is to grow our businesses. And I am so excited when someone asks me, like, hey, who do you know?
Yeah.
Because I'm like sitting there going, oh my God, I get to help out a friend. Right. That's just what we need to do.
Right.
But when you say, hey, go find me my customers, I'm going, fuck, dude. I already spend too much time on LinkedIn trying to find my own customers.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. And then you mentioned that with LinkedIn or others, like, not everybody you're going to ask is extroverted or is good at social media or is well connected on LinkedIn or whatever, fill in the blank. So, they're sitting there and they think of like the same three people. And so the one they think of giving you is probably the, guy they met at the last business after hours that annoyed them the most, or, it's not always a solid referral.
No, but the whole thing we're talking about, right, is it's a numbers game. You're not going to get one referral to one customer. That is not 100% done deal. You always will get them as a customer.
No.
So just by that nature, I need to figure out, what is it? A 4-to-1, a 5-to-1, a 7-to-1, a 10-to-1? And if I know it's a 10-to-1, yeah, that's still a lot easier than 10,000 outbounds making cold calls.
Yeah.
Right. It's a quality lead is what we would call that in sales, right? It's a quality lead that has a higher conversion ratio. So if it's 10-to-1, for example, then cool. If I want to close 4 customers this year, I need to find 40 referrals. Even in your scenario, Damien, I can't just sit back and expect them to land in my lap.
No.
I still need to spend time.
No, that's exactly right. Like, if somebody trusts you to ask about backup in the ER, that's wonderful. You get to connect them, and it is a gift to me. And I appreciate it. You appreciate it. They appreciate it. I'm going to take extra good care of them. But you've already built that trust and rapport where you're kind of the trusted advisor. You're coaching them. You're teaching them. You're already in a spot. And, are you in that spot as the MSP? Are you engaged that often? Maybe not. If you are, this will flow more naturally. But, it goes back to what we were saying. Are you generating enough to turn this into a system? Because referrals are, quality leads, but is that going to get you to your number? If you need 10 new this year, is that going to give you 10 new when you're not closing 100%? Nowhere near that.
Well, and it goes to your initial question. And I think for this one, I'm going to have this over here. For those that don't know, I have a baseball bat with accountability written on it. And yeah, it's upside down, but because my camera's mirrored. But why this exists is, as basic human beings, right, we have three main needs, right? We need food, we need shelter, and we need some form of a relationship, right? And you could say that any way you want.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if we look at animal culture, there's a fourth, which is some type of drive to be alpha, right? To be the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And in business, it's very easy to have your three needs met, right? I've got relationships, I have food, and I have shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So when you go, Kyle, I don't want to grow 15%, what you're telling me is I'm satisfied.
Mm-hmm.
And right now I don't have drive or motivation to continue growing my business.
I'm not willing to work that hard.
I'm not willing to work that hard. I didn't think I needed to work that hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a dangerous place to be as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
Motivation is extremely, extremely tough. And Damien, we've had the fortunality to work with each other in some other aspects. And one of the things that I found when I used to do business coaching heavily was I don't know more than most of the people I work with. The difference is I would run after them with a baseball bat saying, dude, did you wake up and find your next customer today?
Right.
Did you wake up and do this? Right. It's this motivation, or it's like a gym coach, right? Like if he knocks on the door and says, you're working out today, I'm going to go work out.
That's right.
If I don't have that person, I have to be able to self-motivate. And that is a very difficult trait to learn as an entrepreneur. And I struggled with it.
Well, the thing
I don't know about you, but you've probably had moments.
Well, the thing is, speaking about myself, like you're the boss, right? So, you could tell your wife or whoever, how was it? It was a good day, and, your team, they report to you. They're not going to tell you what to do. Now, maybe if you're in a good enough peer group, maybe if you have a good enough friend, maybe if you've got the right coach, like there's a lot of things, but I feel like you need those things. At least I did, to say, hey, because the other thing is there's getting out of your comfort zone, because I think there's staying in it, and there's the awareness of, am I growing? Because you're all growing. I've never talked to an MSP that says, hey, I'm not. Every once in a while they're aware that they're not, because then they know that 10% growth is actually going backwards by the time you count the things that you laid out there, Kyle. But then it's like, oh, well, I didn't, so you're either not aware that you need to be doing more growth, you're actually going backwards, or you're aware, but you're unwilling to get there. And at least my personal experience is, it's not that Kyle was born 10 times more motivated than me. It's that Kyle's got the accountability set up. He's got somebody asking him, and he's told somebody there he's getting 10 new logos this year, or he's going to get, 10 new proposals this month, or whatever it is you need. I know for myself, I was very fortunate to establish an accountability partner with a peer. And this has been ongoing for 18 years. And it started out weekly. Every week, here's the inglorious part about building a business. Did you make the calls? I'm an introverted tech guy that stared at my shoes. I didn't want to make any, I didn't want to do it. All of a sudden, friggin' accounting became exciting. All of a sudden, filing my taxes became more like I would, whatever. But I had to answer. Did you do it? Mm-hmm. And that was the difference. I finally got tired of saying I didn't do it. So yeah, I can't, speaking for myself, I can't, whether you get it through a coach, a peer group, accountability, right, can change your life if you're willing to, because as an owner, you don't have to listen. You could say, you know what, I'm going to fire the coach. I'm going to get out of the group. I'm not going to listen to him. But if you change your mindset and you say, I'm going to be accountable, because I think as entrepreneurs, we like to bend the rules. We like to hop over the fences that are laid out.
We're unemployable.
We're very unemployable. So that's the friction, right? Is, am I willing to still be accountable to growth. And that means you've got to basically subject yourself to answering that. And somebody, you can't say, I am the alpha that is all alone. I'm just going to blaze my own path and figure it all out.
1,000%. So there are ways to increase your discipline. Like I went through a lot of mental exercises in like 2015 to 2019. That's actually what led me to do an Ironman. Was I wanted to see if I could take the mental fortitude of training 3 to 4 hours every single day for an entire year. And I'm not gonna lie, it broke me. It broke me like a wild Mustang. Like it killed me almost. Like there were moments where I thought my now wife was gonna leave me because she didn't see me for almost a year. But one of the early exercises or assessments, I guess, that I go through with some of my MSPs that I coached was I would literally send them 5 of something. So, right, whether it be 5 coins on your desk, or I sent 5 rubber duckies with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 written on it. Same thing that your accountability partner said. I said, every day, I want you to take these 5 rocks out of your box and put them on your desk. And I want you to call 5 random people. Just have a conversation. 5 conversations a day. Let's just start easy. And if you can want you to have a phone call, you take the coin, you put it in your desk. You have the phone call, you put a coin, you put it in your desk.
And voicemail doesn't
and if
count.
You get through all 5. And voicemail does not count. So you went through the same exercise.
Yeah.
And then I want you to just do a tally mark, right? That's your KPI. Did I get through my 5 calls today? It's crippling.
Yeah.
It's crippling.
Yeah. If you haven't battled that yourself, it sounds simple. It's friggin' tough.
It is tough because you're going to have that person that I started to get to a point where I would just play Russian roulette. I would just go through my contacts and I would go, bink, calling that person. And I literally would be like, oh shit, I don't even remember who this is. For some reason, they're a contact in my phone, but I'm going to talk to them.
Yeah. Uncle Bob, right? You need MSP services?
The first time I did it, I called my mom as the very first call. Right? Like, and the second call was my grandma. And the third call was one of my old mentors. Right. But you get to a point where you break free and all of a sudden it's not as awkward. Because if you look at resilience, right? One of the number one ways that resilience starts to lessen cortisol, which is the stress hormone, that's what makes you anxious, is through repetition. Because your body starts to expect it. You know what the outcome is going to be. That's why you see kids in like the Congo that live through war. Like day 1, they see people being killed and they're like 6 months old. When it doesn't faze them because after the 4,000th time, they're like, that's just life.
Yeah.
That's fight or flight, right? We learned to overcome our hormonal response. So you have to, as a business owner, always be remembering your body is just trying to save you when you are uncomfortable. And you just have to go, you know what? I'm uncomfortable, but I can get through this if I do it 5 or 6 more times.
Yeah. You just made me uncomfortable because I was whining about making cold calls. And then you compared that to the kid that's staring death in the face.
Well, hopefully you get to a point where your cold calling becomes more mature and it's not just going to a phone book and saying, oh, Damien Services dry cleaning. Yeah, I'll call that.
Right. That's right. Yeah, I remember in the early days of doing that, messing up so many things, messing up everything. And I would get somebody and they wouldn't be the right fit. And, I'd ask them, do you know, if I was selling managed services, do you know who's interested in managed services or whatever? And that was when I learned that there is a little more to it than that when you're asking for a referral, because I remember feeling so frustrated and embarrassed because this guy answered and they were like, Bob told me that you were looking for people to call. And I was like, no, that's not at all really what I'm looking to do. It's a means to an end that works. And I don't think most people are willing to do it. I love the mindset piece. So why, let me go back to that. Why triathlon or why a marathon?
Why triathlon? So I was always into cycling. So I've been an avid mountain biker since 10 years ago, 12 years ago. I went to University of Santa Cruz, up in the Santa Cruz Mountains, Redwood Forest, and I just got super into mountain biking. And what I recognized with biking, especially back then, I couldn't wear headphones because Bluetooth didn't exist and the cable would get wrapped up.
Mm-hmm.
Boom boxes were too big. You're not going to strap it to your back. So you always had to be in silence.
Mm.
And I started to notice that I would work through a lot of my bullshit in these moments of silence.
Mm.
So just a mental exercise of being with your own thoughts, and you're going for 2.5 hours. And it's a long time to have to live with yourself and your own thoughts.
Yeah.
It's a dark place for some.
Yeah.
And then I got into road cycling where, now you're going 3.5, 4, 5 hours on a bike, right? Same thing. You don't want to put headphones on a road bike. You got cars, you're riding in traffic, right? You need to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
And then it progressed into doing some races. And at one point, one of my friends, Eric Speck, best friend, him and I still go to the movies by ourselves. We do little mandates and we go to the theaters and just watch a movie. He did an Ironman in 2016, 2017. And all he talked about was he hated every minute of it until the day after. Because when he looked back on it, it was being able to get himself to do something that seems unachievable. So it almost became a detriment motivator to a hyper motivator when you go, holy crap, I can get through anything.
Mm.
And just as having a challenge, just as having something to try, I said, let me try it. And I can't tell you, when you are in the pool during winter at 6 a.m. swimming laps for an hour, that is one of those things that will break most people. Like you are sitting there going, I do not want to get in the damn pool. I want to sit in bed. I want to drink my coffee, and I just want to deal with anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then you do it a second day. You do it a third day. And then the fourth day, you decide, I'm going to go on a run during my lunch break. And you multiply that through the months. And you have so much head trash during this process. You have that little demon on your shoulder saying, motherfucker, just give up. Just give up. Just give up.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone with daddy issues, where all I want to do is prove daddy wrong, right? That's kind of my I guess origin story. Is growing up on a ranch, it was always of you got to bust your ass and you got to find a way to work through it. So having to use my own willpower to get through something every single day, even when you're tired and you're in pain and you don't want to do it, and some weird pain that I don't even want to talk about. Very odd and very embarrassing pain. You do it.
Yeah.
And I started to realize in business that it's the same thing. You as the entrepreneur, as the CEO, your job is to do the shit that no one else wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I see too many business owners that go, oh, I'm going to grab on. I'm going to grab onto this one thing that I love doing, and I'm not going to let anyone else do it because I like doing it.
I'm going to be the super tech, right?
Yes, and I'm going to go buy all the stack and the software and the toys.
Yeah.
Well, then what does it change? All the other crap in your business that needs to be worked on. And when you're small, the only valuable thing you have is your time.
Mm.
So if I have a bunch of nerds that work for me, then I need to delegate those nerd things, even though I love doing them, because I got to go do the stuff that no one knows else how to do. Whether that's my bookkeeping, whether that's my sales, whether that's my marketing, whether that's my social media, whether that's networking, right? Whatever it is, I got to go do it. And there's even this video of Elon Musk where he talks about the biggest thing with an entrepreneur is being able to do the job no one else wants to do in your company and do it on a minute's notice. The bathrooms are over flooding. Okay. If no one's picking up a mop and a plunger, then I got to go do it.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Have pride in your business, because at the end of the day, you are an employee to your employees. They depend on you. If that business does not grow 13% year over year, that means your margins are going to be eroding. And if your margins are eroding, you can't give your employees your raises. And if you can't give employees their raises, they're going to leave or think that you're an asshole. So you have to grow your business.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not growing, you're dying is a thing for a reason. It's called inflation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think, if you're not changing, you're dying, as a person, right? Mm-hmm. And that working out is a big metaphor for that, right? You can put it off, you can eat the you can eat a little worse this day. You can skip this. You can skip a few days. But, if you're not investing in your health, then you're not showing up for your family, for your team in the way that you could be. And if you're not willing to do that hard stuff, then you have to ask yourself, am I willing to do the other hard things?
I had over 100 employees in my MSP. I had 60 employees at Sierra Pacific Group, right? Like an Empath, we're building out that employee thing as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I die, they all lose their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Their families no longer have the income they need to get that roof over their head or their stomach fed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have a responsibility to those people.
Huge responsibility.
But it's also a huge gift. And we talk a lot about Empath, where as MSPs, we are more like college football teams than professional football teams. You're smirking. You already know the answer?
Yeah, no, let's hear it. Let's see. I love the analogy.
Professional football teams have a big bucket of cash. They can do something called franchise tagging. Patrick Mahomes, best quarterback in college that we've ever seen. I'm going to pay him $1 billion to never leave us.
Mm-hmm.
Even a $100 million MSP still only makes 10 to 12% net profit. They do not have the cap, and they're borrowing money from private equity.
Mm-hmm.
They do not have the cash to franchise tag somebody.
Mm-hmm.
A college football team, you only get 3 to 4 years with a player.
Mm-hmm.
And then it all starts over again. I have to be able to get that employee from kind of good to a championship in that small amount of time frame. So I got to be strategic. I got to be able to train them. I got to be able to get them the tools that they need to be the best version of themselves. In the best case scenario, I got that player to a position to where now they get franchise tagged.
Mm-hmm.
Same with MSPs. I'm going to get someone that's a tier 1 or an SDR or an AR clerk. I'm going to give them the tools that they need, and eventually they are going to leave you. You are not going to have employees that last 12, 15 years because you can never pay them enough to let them achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm. Not if you got amazing people.
I need to, even if you have amazing people though, right? Like I even think back to like myself. If I have an amazing business and the most I can do for an employee is get them to a career position to where they're desired and they can make as much money or lifestyle as they want.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, a lot of my employees have become their own entrepreneurs.
Right.
There is nothing worse than like I did to my girlfriend in high school and being like, don't leave me. I will do whatever you want to not break up with me.
That's not your account management strategy.
No, it's not my account management strategy either. I have a whole other tirade on that one. But to me, right, like if I only have, 4 years with a player, with an employee, if I can make them double their salary in that 4 years, I should be like celebrating. Like we should be having a party saying, "Oh my God, we got someone to the majors." Mm-hmm. We should be excited. Because if you don't and you do try to franchise tag them, now your inflation's not 6 to 8%. Your costs aren't going up just 10%. Your costs are going to go up 11%, 12%, 13%.
Mm-hmm.
I used to make a joke that I could increase not a joke, it was a proven fact. I could increase an MSP's margins by 20% in 6 months.
Okay. How's that?
I was never unsuccessful, ever.
Okay.
However, if they wanted to hyper grow or fast grow, I would tell them that you're probably going to have 10 to 15% of attrition.
Mm.
Because as we start to look at the financials, know where we are, know where we're going, and then look at the roster of players we have to do that with, we're going to either be overstaffed, overpaid, which causes other employees to be underpaid. So for those employees listening going, he's just chopping heads. Well, if we have 12 employees and we only have the budget to hire 8 of them, I have a feeling most of you haven't gotten raises because you have too many employees.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, adjusting the price, because the only 2 ways in business to make money is charge more or do less.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And those are where things like automation and process all kind of start to improve your business. Outsourcing, offshoring, all that good stuff. So, I mean, that's a long-winded way of saying, right, if you took the financial exercise and applied sales and marketing strategy, you can get wherever you need to, but you are going to have to adjust your product. And as MSPs, our product typically involves people.
Absolutely. So on the people note, I know you mentioned a lot of things, but I know I'm asked earlier, differentiate. I believe, and I think you do, that you need to differentiate not just in sales and marketing, but to the team. If you're going to recruit that team. So as an MSP, I feel like most of us struggle. When I was back as an MSP, I struggled. I was like, we do tech stuff. Isn't that cool? That doesn't differentiate you at all. That doesn't tell them why they should join you. So how do you convince the folks, whether they're senior or whether they're, whether they're senior tech level 3 CTO, whether they're level 1, just getting a foothold in the door, wherever they fall on that spectrum, like you said, AR clerk to marketing, there's all these folks. How do you attract the right team? Because as you mentioned, you got to have the right people.
So while I know I make a joke about accountability bet, right? And everyone thinks of accountability as I need to hold somebody accountable.
Mm-hmm.
There's a yin to that yang, which is I need people that know how to be accountable. Now, how is that different? Being accountable is I know what is expected of me, and I'm going to do what I need to do to get the job done to cover for the rest of my team. So as an operations employee, service manager, service director, operations director, whatever you call yourself, being accountable recognizes that if I let too many customers out the door and they fire us for shitty services, I'm going to make the job of my sales team more difficult. So it's being accountable to my peer in sales, saying, I'm going to do everything we can to make us have a rock solid service that people are happy with. And we bend over backwards to make sure most of our clients, notice I don't say all of our clients, but most of our clients, fit within our model.
Mm-hmm.
However, I also recognize that we need a certain amount of product margin to also pay for the service or the sales and finance team, to where if we do have a customer taking advantage of us, I'm going to partner with my sales team and say, hey, Acme Co., they call every time the microwave stops working. We are not profitable on them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to get their account management team to talk to that customer and say, hey, we're trying to do less to not increase your price. So now we're going to have to charge you more if you want to keep calling us about the microwave not working.
Mm-hmm.
Which then makes my finance team's jobs a lot easier because they don't need to chase us down saying we're spending too much money and going over budget. So finding people that know how to be accountable is a difficult road where you do need to hold people accountable. And going again to say, hey, my goal is here, right? I have to, there's an adage, which is sometimes the team that got you here won't get you there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to recognize that if you have employees that are not thirsty for knowledge, thirsty for education, trying to figure out the how, they bring you problems, not solutions, then you may need to assess saying, hey, if I've told my services team, we need 48% margin on everything that we do, fully blended, they should be coming to me saying, hey, we're not 48% margin. This is going to cause problems. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't have to go to them. But again, this is where I've built in you've seen it, Damien, my entire expectation flywheel of I need to be able to set expectations and have expectations, which is the prerequisite to setting expectations, right? Have an idea of where I want to go. Again, going back to the sales goal, if I want to grow, I need 8 logos. If I know I need 8 logos, then here's how I'm going to pay for a sales team to get me 8 logos, which means my service team, right? All of that starts to kind of fit in the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And if your team doesn't want to be accountable to the goals of the business so everyone can be paid fairly and everyone will do what they can to compensate for the rest of the company, then they may not be the position or the person to get you there. And it's your job as the owner, the unfun part of your job, to find someone that will do that.
So what do you look for? How do I find that person? What's the secret sauce? And everybody's hiring, but not everybody's hiring people that are accountable, people that are the right fit. I see too often, in my opinion, a lot of focus on hard skills. You got this cert, you got this degree, but you're a jerk. You're not thirsty to learn. You don't play well with their team. Maybe, You put on a good face for the clients, but you're otherwise, wrecking our culture. How do you, everybody interviews well. How do you find the right people?
So finding the people to me isn't as difficult as it is. Let me think of how to say this. Finding the people is a lot more difficult than it is, or less difficult than actually putting a path that is going to make someone successful. Building that path, knowing what they need to do to get you the needs that you have. And people, then you need to give them the ability to raise their hand and say, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. Can you get me a consultant? Can you get me a coach? Can you buy me education to figure it out? Mm-hmm. And there's an old adage of hire slow, fire fast. Mm-hmm. And really where it comes from is, and I use this analogy a lot, everyone knows that tier 2 engineer that clocks off at 4 o'clock. Mm-hmm. They close less tickets than you. They make the same or possibly more money than you do. Mm-hmm. And you sit there until 5:30 and get the job done. Mm-hmm. That is not the problem of the guy that's taking advantage of the situation. That is the problem of your manager who is not building a system or an environment where everyone pulls their own weight. I'm a firm believer that most people with the right expectations and the right tools, they will do a good job, right? If they're compensated fairly, if they get the time off that they need, and they have clear direction on where to find knowledge, what money that they can spend without permission, and what they should do if they don't know how to make a decision, mm-hmm. they will rise to the occasion. Google actually found that SMART goals, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based, were actually not motivating. Mm-hmm. And why they found that out was that attainable, the A, a lot of people were setting goals to be just easily passable. They're attainable, meaning I can achieve them. They weren't stretch goals, meaning they're a little difficult. They're a little hard. Right? Not 0 to best in class, not 0 to record breaking, but 0 to 2 if the expectation is 1. So if you ask them the questions of we need to get to 2, you know how to get to 1, bring me a plan. Start to ask the questions of I'm giving you a week to bring me your solution. Mm. I'm giving you a week, but I see this with rocks all the time. People build their quarterly goals and they're not measurable, or if you don't know the term rocks, just think of them as sprints or quarterly projects to mature the business. Or they pick some recent thing of like, hey, this shit burned down yesterday, so I guess it's my rock today. Mm-hmm. They don't go through the strategic process to say, we need to improve margin by 2%. But a key differentiator is on week 2, have them come to you with their plan on what they're going to do to achieve it and what measurement means achievement is finished. And ask them, can you do 10% better? Can you do 15% better? Can you do 20% better? And you're not doing it to just get more out of people, which might be how some people hear this. You're doing this to see their thought process. How do they solve problems? How can they achieve things? Another good thing that I've seen in the past is don't be afraid to hire people part-time or on contract in the beginning. Ask leaders to come in, work with you for 30 to 45 days. Just observe. I'll pay you. And what I want to know is if you truly want this job, I want you to present me with the plan on how you're going to help us achieve our goals. Mm. Don't bring me problems, bring me solutions.
Right. All the difference in
There's an old adage, and EOS has this old adage of identify, discuss, and solve, IDS. Why do I want you to identify problems and bring them to me?
Right.
If I hired you to be a director or a manager, why don't you identify, tell me the solve, and then let's discuss if we want to go with that solve or not. Mm-hmm. So all of these little actions are putting you in a position to where you are enabling people to make decisions. You are enabling people to fail, right? My mantra is dare to suck, and I should allow my employees to have the same respect of I don't hold you accountable for your failures. I hold you accountable for learning from those failures. Mm-hmm. Sales and marketing is a great example. I may put your quota at we're going to grow by 30%. I know in my heart of hearts that is a difficult thing to do. Right. You are in the upper 1 percentile of CROs or sales managers. Mm-hmm. Am I going to fire you if you hit 25%, 23%, 20%?
No.
No.
No way.
But what I do want is that respect to come to us and say, hey, we were supposed to hit 30%. We're going to hit 20%. Here's the things that are happening, right? Have that transparent nature to where they can come to me and present the data, tell me what they learned and tell me what they want to try, something new, right? Because times change. Who thought that TikTok was going to be a big thing in business?
Right.
Who thought that YouTube would be a good, big thing in business? Right? Podcasting. People laughed at it. They thought it was the dumbest thing in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, there is that nature of your buyer tomorrow is going to want to be presented something differently than tomorrow. And you brought up an interesting point of differentiators when you're talking to prospects. Mm-hmm. If I have to rely on something shiny, something marketing that I put on my website for you to sign a deal, I've probably gone about the whole process wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Why do I say that? Not like this interview, but in sales, there's a 75-25 rule. 80-20, whatever fraction you want to give it to where the majority of the time your prospect should be talking.
Right.
I used to have my sales reps write on a piece of paper. I said, I want to see this on every single questionnaire you fill out. You already know what I'm going to say. WAIT. Wait.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I talking? And I wanted to see this on every questionnaire that they asked because I wanted to know that something stared them in the face. They saw me saying, hey, Damien, shut up.
Right.
Listen, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Again, unlike this interview where I'm talking a lot.
Yeah, but I totally relate, right? Because you come through and you learn, and in the beginning, you're week 1, you're excited. And then somewhere in the first week or 2, you start to realize you have no idea what you're doing. And maybe you're going through imposter syndrome. But then within a month or 2 or 3, you're like, I know this stuff. I can answer these questions. Yay. And so they say something and you just jump on it, right? You're just so excited to answer. Ooh, I know about cybersecurity. Let me tell you, we have all these XDR, MDR, blah, DR, whatever, fill in the DR. We got all kinds of cool things that'll make you just, more handsome and taller. And I don't know. It just does these things. Right. So
Mr. Business Owner, you'll be more attractive to other nerds.
That's right. Right. So why show up and throw up with all this tech jargon and overwhelm them instead of listening? And like you said, wait. I love the acronym. And that I found you have to wait through what can feel uncomfortable in the silence. And depending on them, they're still processing. There's a little bit more that's going to come out, but sometimes that last part is the part they need you to solve. Maybe more than everybody else.
And if they mention a problem, you only need to say one thing, Damien.
What's that?
I can help you with that.
Right.
But they're not looking for widgets. They're not looking for nerd stuff. Let's take a law firm, for example. What do lawyers obsess about? Winning deals in the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
They're a partner. They have spent the last 25 years of their life obsessing about law, obsessing about their practice. You have spent the last 25 years obsessing about servers, cloud, cybersecurity, all of this stuff. So what is passionate to you is not passionate to them.
Right.
So if you start there and, would you say throw up?
Show up and throw
say that
up.
again for me.
Right.
Show up and throw up. You are not giving them the opportunity to tell you what is important to them.
Mm-hmm.
I have a post going live tomorrow, so probably a week after this airs or something, where I'm talking about, do you want a partnership with your customer or a relationship?
Mm.
You know what the difference is?
Tell me.
So a relationship is like what I have with my cousin. He's always going to be family to me. But 3 years ago, I lent him $100. He never paid me back.
You got the same kind of cousin I do.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We all have that person, but he's still family. I still love him to death. but it was it was beneficial to him, not beneficial to me,
Mm-hmm.
right? He put me in a less position for his own good, but you know what? It's a relationship. He's that guy. At the end of the day, I still love him to death, but
Right.
nothing's going to change, right?
That's right.
It's just what it is. A partnership is what I have with my wife. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, but we should always walk together to solve each other's problems so that it's always mutually beneficial, right? Sometimes she'll win, but then sometimes I have to win. But at the end of the day, it needs to balance out, right? The scales need to balance. And if you're going through your customers, I make all my customers do this exercise of rank your clients most profitable to least profitable.
Mm-hmm.
And I can guarantee you, if you were to rate your customers from partnership to relationship, you're going to see your customers that are most profitable will be partnerships. Where if I tell them, hey, Mr. Customer, we know how to talk about a 6% increase this year. They're going to go, yeah, costs are going up, man. We know it. It's painful, right? It's not going to be a gross conversation.
That's right.
You're going to be able to tell them, like, I am trying to provide this service to you. And the only way I can guarantee this quality that you expect is I got to pay my guys more money.
Mm-hmm.
Or I need to offshore them to India or Philippines or wherever. And that's not the service that I've promised.
Right.
They're going to go, yeah, we get it. It's painful, but we're going to increase our pricing too. So whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship, that's a whole different conversation. No, we're not paying that increase.
Right.
Your price was your price. Now you're trying to go back on us, right? It's a weird conversation.
Yeah.
And I actually did some research. There's a Forbes article about this, partnership and relationship. There's a third category called a transaction. Where they are fully in power. They come to you. They say, Damien, you are going to do this for me because on your website it says you do this and I want you to do that.
Wow.
Don't tell me anything. Don't consult with me. Just do as I say. Back up, boy.
That sounds like you should.
I'm trying to keep a straight face.
Yeah, that's right. Sounds like a transaction sounds like what you do with an e-commerce site, right? Not a services business.
But how many MSPs have managed service contracts with people that are treating it like a transaction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
so Peter Gajawa,
you come with that 6% increase and they say, well, I can get it cheaper elsewhere. Bob, some Bob's MSP can do it, or, I'm going to leave.
They don't value even the service, right? They're not even saying, we'll just continue to pay the current rate, but we're not doing an increase, but we're going to stay with you.
Mm-hmm.
They're saying, no, we're just going to take our business elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I don't remember how I got on that track, but really that's that understanding of there is good churn, but if there's good churn, Kimberly Clark in the paper mill, Jim Collins, Good to Great, they made the decision in the 60s, I believe, 50s, where they were proud of making all of their paper products from their own paper mill. But what they discovered was that, and there was a lot of controversy. They pissed off the board. The CEO at the time decided, we're just going to sell the paper mill. Yep. We're just going to do distribution of paper products.
It was crazy at the time, right? It was almost all the revenue. It was what they were known for.
Almost all of the revenue. Yep, exactly.
And everybody manufactured things, and like doing it in-house, it was the thing, right? That was the way to do it back then.
But what they found out was not only was it 80% of their revenue, but it was also like 99% of all their costs. So it was all revenue that they weren't making money on anyway. So they could maintain 20% of their revenue with none of their costs, right? Like 10 timing basically their profit by that one simple decision. And that's why they lasted 30 years.
Speaking of that, I want to talk about a question I get all the time, which is, how do I price my managed service? Of course, being backup and DR, how do I price that? And I get so tired of them going, well, I bought vendor A and I marked it up some random percentage, 30, 50, whatever. First of all, how do you know that's what to start from? That certainly is not a value-driven price. Second of all, now you're kind of locked into that vendor because you can't go to one that if they need to charge more to deliver a good service, maybe you chose the cheapest one, you marked it up 30%, you're stuck. Like how you couldn't switch tools in your stack if you needed to without just killing your margins. So, but it seems like everybody's been taught that's the way you price those things. And then worse, I feel like, they make a wild guess of if I mark it up. And the other thing that I've heard people say, well, I marked it up 100%. You didn't, you're not making that kind of margin on it. They think they are. What they mean is they go from $50 to 100, but you're not making that kind of margin on it. And what's worse is they have no idea. They might track which customer consumed the most time, but they don't actually know how much time they're spending on managing backup or security or whatever managed service, subsection that they're delivering. And so therefore it's a wild guess. Like it costs 50, I'm going to charge 100. I'm making up both those numbers, of course. And then I also have no idea how much labor I have in it. So why are we doing this? Is there a better way?
So in business, the founder of Netscape actually said there's only two ways to differentiate yourself in business: to bundle or to unbundle. Not many new ideas this day and age, right? I mean, even look what Kaseya did this week during our interview, right? The whole, let's bundle all of the MSP products together so your stack is no different than your neighbor. Mm-hmm. So again, relationships are really going to matter, right? Mm-hmm. Building partnerships is going to be the creme de la creme at that point because we will become a commodity. Mm-hmm. Uh-oh, I said the C word.
Right. Uh-oh. Let's talk about the truth here.
So before I get into the commodity piece, you're completely right. The whole, I'm going to mark it up 100%, therefore I'm profitable. Right. Homie, it's a $3 endpoint.
Right.
You made $3. Good for you. And then, like you mentioned, labor. How much time did it take you to install that product for them? 20 hours. Okay. Average IT salary is going to be about $40 to $50 fully burdened. So 3 hours, $150. So it's going to take you, let me think about this, 50 years for an ROI?
Right.
Something doesn't add up.
And that's if they never call about that product.
And that's if they know, exactly, right? That's if they never call. And what's missing is we have a new generation of MSP owners where all they've heard is this all you can eat. Mm-hmm. Well, all you can eat doesn't mean all you can bundle. Mm-hmm. And if I think back to 2009, 2010, when I heard people like Dipple and Bellini talking about this kind of bundling of your MSP products, it was a form of differentiator. Go to your customers and tell them how many endpoints and workstations or servers they have, and just give them an easy price to do all of their IT services unlimited. Because back then we didn't have MSSPs and cybersecurity and SOC. Mm-hmm. We didn't have disaster and recovery devices. We didn't, hell, think about it this way. We had Exchange servers that we were billing for.
Right.
And then they all migrate to 365. Yeah, ransomware was like this little thing that you got on Windows XP that you ran as disk and it completely took it off.
That's right.
But we migrated them to 365 and we don't recoup that revenue of managing the Exchange server. We just, poof.
Yeah.
I'll spend 4 hours a month in 365 for free.
Yeah. No, that's the other thing. Forgetting the backup part. So many of you talk to, they're like, well, Microsoft gives me the margin. That's what I get to make.
16%.
Exactly. And you're like, really? Why would you sell that for 16% and manage it and take all the burden?
I did a YouTube video in January. I did a 3-part series. If I started an MSP in 2024, what would I do? So I went through the strategy, I went through the operational journey, and then I went through the sales process.
Okay.
And one of the things I said in that video was I would do no distribution. I would do no product sales in the first year. I would just put their credit card into 365. Why? It's not worth the time to set up the vendor, to manage the reconciliation, to deal with Mr. Customer, what license do you need to have? I don't want to deal with any of those conversations because my labor is what I make the most margin dollars per capita on. So going back to this conversation on pricing, what I see so often when I used to do a lot of MSP coaching, I don't do as much as I used to. I would break out their product. And when I say product, it's their bundled MSP product that we would call a managed service agreement. And I would put them into pillars, right? Your SaaS, your hardware software, your labor, your whatever other categories that you have, backups. And I would look at the individual margins and margin dollars of each of those categories. And they would be 100% right. I would be making 100% on backup and 16% on 365. And hardware software wasn't bundled in, so it's a 0. And I'd be like, guys, how much of this is labor? You're telling me you're pricing $100 a user. What of that $100 goes towards labor? Oh, we just mark up our product. If our software cost is $80 a user for all the hard costs, we just mark it up to $150.
Right.
So what you're telling me is you're just marking up products and you're giving the labor away for free?
Right. But that seems to be the rationale, right?
Well, and we say this, I want to be very empathetic here. It's because we've done a poor job educating new MSP owners. Here's how to build a product. Here's where we were in 2000. Here's where we were in 2004. Here's where we were in 2008. Because there's a progression from, T&M to VAR it even goes back to like internal IT, right? If we want to really rewind back to mainframes. I did a video on YouTube as well about the history of the MSP. But it gets to a point in about 2008 where of being a VAR was a cash flow problem. I had a lot of really expensive engineers with customers that only called me once in a while, and their projects weren't consistent. So I had to do a lot of deals to keep those employees fed.
That's right.
This thing called recurring revenue would solve all those problems. We built it to fix a cash flow problem, not really to be a differentiator. But we've done a poor job educating that there's a place and a time to add margin. There's a time and a place to add markup. And there is a time and a place to where you need to know how much cost you have in each of your price per user or price per endpoint to support those that I then need to add margin on top of and then markup on top of that. All of that bundled will create that healthy gross margin to pay for that sales and marketing team, to go back to our initial statement, that will get us to that 8 logos a year.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm not trying to pick. I'm not trying to laugh if you're listening, but it seems like every MSP says, I'm going to buy it for 80 and sell it for 150. And my point is,
because I saw on Reddit, I should be charging that.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. And then this is my point. One, the vendor determines the price. Now, maybe you try to get a better price, but they're determining a price and you switch vendors and your cost is going to be different. Two, most often I'm like, why are you charging 150? Well, I can't get any more than that in my market. Or, I sell to cheaper, you don't understand. My market is price sensitive. Every market's price sensitive. So I'm not trying to be, insensitive to this. I'm just saying that so what you're telling me is, you let what you perceive as the market in your geography and your vertical define the price at which you're allowed to sell it. And then you let the vendor define your cost at which you're allowed to buy it. I'm no rocket surgeon, but that seems like a bad business model when you're saying you control neither. I give up. I can't control the cost. I can't control the price. Therefore, I have no control over the margin.
Well, and here's some tough love. If we go way back to our lead generation conversation, did you truly do market research on your price? No. Did you truly go to 100 people and say, what does this price mean to you? Probably not. You probably talked to 2 people, one being your cousin and another one being that customer that doesn't pay you enough money in the first place.
Here's where I think it comes from. I can't charge that comes from, I think I don't have the pipeline. And what happened is one guy said no. And so I can't afford to lose that many because I need all these logos and all this business. So if one said no, then I just need to drop the price from 150 to 120, just like that.
That's a massive variable in this. Like it's the I got no once and now I'm nervous because cortisol went up and that's fight or flight. I need to fight now for survival. Yeah. And I only had 1 lead this entire quarter. So I need to now decrease my price, which now decreases my ability to grow my company and decreases the raises I can give my employees. because I'm not putting the time and cycles to grow my company. And if someone says no, I just go, okay, that's just no right now. I'll come back later. Have a great rest of your week. Let me find the next customer. I think there is. Let's just, though, for a second, let's play the scenario of, let's say that they're in a market that truly is impoverished. I've worked with a lot of MSPs in like Brazil and some countries that don't have that market. Mm-hmm. If you truly have a market that can't afford the stack that you're trying to sell them, your problem is then you over-engineered your solution for your target market. Right.
You don't need seven layers of security.
You have too many widgets and doohickeys.
You don't need seven layers of security in a $10 a seat stack, or whatever.
No, 1,000%. Or maybe they can't afford unlimited on-site. They just get unlimited remote. Like, adjust the solution then to fit the market. Don't try to force the square peg in the round hole, because at the end of the day, you're only going to make 16% margin on Microsoft 365, no matter what the price is. So then let's say if they can only afford $50 a user, why don't I make the majority of that the labor so that I can at least guarantee those margins, since that's what I make the most margin dollars on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the two variables that I really see is it's opportunity and it's you outprice the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And measure it, right? Measure your actual hours invested to understand your actual cost. Because if you're
that gets into MVP and product ROI, and we could talk about that too of, I'm going to be an MSSP. Okay, well, it cost me $1 million to build out my MSSP.
Right. That's right.
I put an extra S in there just because it's a stupid name.
It's probably super secret service or something.
Super secret service provider. Ooh, we just came up with managed super secret services provider.
It's going to be the new.
That's the name of the episode.
It's going to be the new thing. We're going to have to start it. You heard it here first.
Can I buy the domain right now?
Yeah. Last thing I want to ask about, I know you said the top things you do if you're starting an MSP. What are the top things you think you need to be thinking about as an MSP right now? What do I need to be thinking about changing? What do I need to be investigating? What am I sleeping on?
What am I sleeping on? So is this like for any MSP or if I'm just starting?
For any MSP.
Any MSP. Current market shows us around 50 to 60,000 MSPs in North America. That's a lot of MSPs. Mm-hmm. Back in my day, back in your day, it was probably a quarter of that. Mm-hmm. Why? The private equity market is also a Hydra effect. I acquire one MSP, two come back. I chop one head off, two come back. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going to be Hercules in this situation, I need to think with my mind. I don't need to think with my brawn. I'm not going to ever out-widget a competitor. I'm never going to out-customer service a competitor. Mm-mm. My MSP, we hired from Nordstrom's and retail and restaurants. Like you said, I was hiring for soft skills, not hard skills. So there's a couple things that you really need to be cognizant of. If it's going to become a commoditization in a commodity market, right? Price goes down. Mm-hmm. Now we have to compete on price, which means I can't go in there at $190 a user. I need to be prepared to offer something at $150 a user. Mm-hmm. I need to be prepared to unbundle if I want to take the advice from Netscape, right? Because I need to be able to say, yeah, I'll take you and just do cyber. Yeah, I'll take you and just do your firewall. As long as I'm labor conscious and I'm conscious of my margins, total, blended, then I can grow and scale my business because now I'm willing to take more customers because it's going to take more customers if the revenue per customer is less, right? Supply and demand is really what I'm talking about. So if I'm an MSP, I need to be conscious that, and I have this theory that as we commoditize, we are going, right, whatever you want to know what's going to happen in the future, you look at the past. I've done a lot of research into two main verticals, and I'll say it here. I was going to make a YouTube video, but I'll say it here. The two main verticals were industrialization, so manufacturing, and the finance market. Finance market like bookkeeping, accountants, CPAs, CFOs. If you look at what happened in the manufacturing market, automation was their number one focus. Mm-hmm. Number one, right? Henry Ford in the assembly line. That's automation. Mm-hmm. Why did you do it? Because I want to be able to put out more products with less effort, economy of scale. Less effort means less cost. Less cost means I have more to put into building said product. Well, if I can automate everything in the IT world when it comes to IT and I can offshore everything, you as an MSP will never be able to compete.
Yeah.
Just on price alone, you are going to lose deals.
Mm-hmm.
A small business of less than 10 users, which is 70% of small businesses in the United States, is always going to go with someone that's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
Same if they're 20 users, same if they're 30 users. Yes, you will get a foot in specialties and professional services, but it'll be very difficult for just mom and dad shops that don't want to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to go back and go, okay, what markets were able to succeed? Well, if you look at the finance market in the 50s and 60s, we recognize the world of industrialization and growth. And we had this baby boomer era where businesses were growing, right? That's where a lot of the good to great examples came from. They had to build out accounting teams because you have a lot of customers, right? You have this commerce market that's appearing. So we have a lot of APAR. And what happened? Well, these fractional bookkeepers started to come out. I'll do your bookkeeping as a service.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a consultant. I'll do all of your bookkeeping for whatever the hours are. Sounds familiar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happens when all of these bookkeepers appeared and they started to offshore? Well, okay, now I'm overworked and I need to be able to do more customers. So I hire assistants. So now I have a bookkeeping service.
Mm-hmm.
Now, maybe I bring on a CPA to do tax advising. Or maybe I'm a CPA that wants to do bookkeeping. Well, in the 90s, this thing called PayPal and QuickBooks and the internet started to appear and AR became automated.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't have to think about depositing checks. Now I can just send invoices online.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to worry about the mail. Now it takes less effort to do bookkeeping.
Yep.
And what happened around 2005 to 2010, a lot of those guys became something called fractional CFOs.
Mm-hmm.
Where I am a fractional CFO with a bunch of services that are low cost, but they get the job done, so I don't have to do it. But at the end of the day, I have the relationship as the fractional CFO, and I will help you improve your business. I'm starting to, especially with cybersecurity and all this stuff that's happening, I'm seeing us go back to a little bit more consulting. Can I help you with business automation? Can I help you improve your business? Can I look out for shadow IT needs? Can I make sure our risks are mitigated? But I'm going to do that as a board member of this business that you hire to sit on your team. Like the whole virtual CIO thing, well, it's great. I think we've underserved it to create it just as a glorified account management. Mm-hmm. When traditionally it needs to be somebody that is the key point of contact for that customer saying, I'm going to sit in December on a budget meeting with you guys to say, here's what I think IT is going to need to spend next year to get us to our business.
You wouldn't expect anything less from a CFO. Why would you from your virtual CIO, right? I mean, the CFO, exactly. They've got to be on there. They've got to understand the business. They've got to model your business. You can't just come in and say this same financial model works for everyone, right? You can buy QuickBooks for really cheap, but like you need my advice.
Completely. And Matt Lee came on the Cybersecurity Leadership Summit that Wes and I do once a month. And he made this statement of, yeah, there's CIO, yeah, there's CISO. But in some businesses, you probably only have the opportunity to have one person. Mm-hmm. So if I'm the consultant, I need to go in there representing not only the collection of information, but the protection of that information. Because if you're a law firm and you're using Microsoft 365, what happens when Copilot is scanning your document management system and ingesting all of this protected information into an AI language model that now someone in your marketing team is throwing off and sending to bad press? Right. Yes, thumbs down.
Yeah, thumbs down.
And that takes time. And building a consulting firm is difficult. Mm-hmm. I've tried myself, right? I built a giant consulting firm in the MSP space. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It's a partner model. It's why a lot of law firms go to LLPs, not LLCs. Mm-hmm. I have to buy in. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking about this a long time. I think that's something a lot of MSPs need to be cognizant of. As a small MSP, you are going to be more expensive. Mm-hmm. So what can you do being more expensive to pay for your family to where you bring more value that a big MSP could never deliver on?
I love that. So I agree with you. And so let's say I'm listening and I do agree. What action can I take?
What action can you take? Learn, talk, converse. When you have a shift in a market, shift in a landscape like we're going through, The more data you have, the more education you have, the more people you work with that are in similar situations, and you don't think of them as competitors because, right, there's a huge market.
Mm-hmm.
There's millions of businesses in the United States, and most of them are small businesses, right? A huge proportion.
Absolutely.
Then we need to work together to find a model. Chris Ryan, he has something called VCIO University. I love what they're doing, right? They're talking about this topic quite a bit. Net Lynch, she's a VCISO for a very large MSP where they're truly doing fractional CIO and fractional CISO. And one of the things we're doing with Empath as a shameless plug is we're having all of these super smart people come into the platform and create courses on the little genius areas that they've built that differentiate them as a service employee, right? We're all service. We're there to service our customers.
Yes.
Right? I think we forget that so often, that your customer is why you are in business, which means they have a problem and it is for us to solve. You're there to make their problems less. You are there to listen, right? To not throw up on them and go, hey, you just mentioned a problem. I can fix that with information or technology. Let me come back to you in a week with a solution.
Absolutely. Well,
and ultimately, that's what we're trying to do with Empath is can we get, rather than having thought leaders, we have thought visionaries, we have thought sharers, we have people that can bring out all of these little things that can make people stronger and have a bigger toolbox to service their customers.
So speaking of that, tell me what you're doing at Empath, Kyle.
I won't go too much longer on it just because I don't want to bore people, but essentially Empath is a learning management system that is affordable for MSPs and lessens the burden of building a upskill and learning pathway for their tier one engineers, their sales reps, their finance employees, all those areas that you may have blinders on as an MSP owner, including training for MSP owners. So a lot of the concepts I'm talking about, I've built courses on inside of Empath. But as my MSP, I would hire a new tier one engineer and I would give him the basics, which I had in a learning management system that cost me a lot of money to build out in 2015. Mm-hmm. But what did I have to do? I had to give them a bunch of links to go log into 43 different vendor portals to go learn about their stuff. Mm. Did I ever trust and verify? Did I ever go follow up that they actually took those courses? No.
Right.
I said, go hip to hip.
Yeah.
So we give a two-way model, or a three-way model actually, where Empath is bringing 101 content, all the stuff that gets your team ready to the next level. 201, we're working with a lot of vendor partners to bring their training into Empath, and we're actually got a pretty long waiting list of vendors that we're bringing in. And then 301 is allowing you as the MSP to bring in your own training into Empath so you can have your employees truly take a pathway that may take them 8 months, a year, 2 years to get to the career path, right? We talked about the franchise tag, right? Can I get them to a championship within a couple years, be a championship level player without having to rely on the single largest bottleneck of an MSP, which is recruitment, not sales.
There's two funnels in a business, right? Recruitment and sales. So you're not working that one.
Exactly.
And that could be a differentiator.
And sales is just effort.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that could be a massive differentiator. I don't care if my employees leave. I've got 2 in the hopper. They'll be ready in 2 months.
Well, that, but also just we're used to throwing things at people, I think, in the technology industry because it changes so often. So if I'm interviewing for a couple of places and they both sound pretty good, but one has got this incredible learning path where I can get to not just 101, but 201 and 301, I'm going to join that one, probably even for a little less money because I've got the career growth nailed instead of just run around and do stuff and figure stuff out, which, I think we all enjoy as tech people, but still that could differentiate, attract the right talent.
You know how many times I bought my employees some expensive education software and they never used it, or they would be like, boss, I don't use it because it's paralysis, right? It's option paralysis. There's 1,000 different things and none of them seem applicable to my customer because none of them truly use VLANs and none of them truly have these complicated group policy structures.
Right.
I'm learning stuff that has no value to our customers today. Because as MSPs, we are service providers. We manage a bunch of services, which means we don't need to be the nerd of nerds, but I need to make it a pleasant experience with minimal effort.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know this has been a really, really cool discussion from my perspective. Thank you for this, Kyle. How can folks get connected to Empath or to you?
So Empath is empathmsp.com. We're affordable, so you can literally, without talking to a sales bro or transparent pricing, you can actually sign up without even talking to me. But if you do want to talk to me, look me up on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. Kyle Christiansen. I'm sure the show notes will have that link. And feel free to just book time with me. Let's talk. Let me see if I can help you with something. I'm so passionate by this MSP channel that I've dedicated the last 20 years to, that I just want to see MSPs grow and mature and stay ahead of things like regulation and as little lessons learned through failure as possible.
Yeah, I love it. So if you're listening, you're not taking advantage of Empath or Kyle's offer, you're missing out on somebody that's built MSPs to 15 million, somebody that has started multiple, coached even more, been the largest, I guess, integrator or ConnectWise integrator there was. I mean, it knows all kinds of things in the industry, has probably made most of the mistakes. So, and I love, I guess, finally just say that, you used and developed a learning management system in your company, and that helped you guys scale and hypergrowth. So I love that you're now democratizing that and bringing to everyone. Now I don't have to be an LMS nerd myself to figure out how to do this.
Yeah, if you think engineers are expensive, go look how much instructional design engineers are.
I didn't even know it was a thing. Awesome. Well, Kyle, thank you so much for being on MSP Mindset today. It was a true gift.
Hey, this was really fun, man. We should do it again.
Will do. Thanks.